Welcome to the Pinleader podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pinleader podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
Well, hello there. Today's episode is called Goal Setting. And yes, today I'm your host, Mr. Gore. We also have Dr. Gore, who we will be interviewing.
Excellent. Well, thank you for actually taking over hosting duties today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, every once in a while, you got to get a break.
I do appreciate it.
So, I have a question today. I read 7 out of 10 U.S. adults set goals for themselves at the start of the year. The question is, how many will keep them?
You know, it's an interesting question because I have been looking at this for a while, and, we've done a lot of shows about planning and goal setting, and I have to admit that it can be very much of a challenge. But what I'm seeing, there are a number of goals that are being achieved, but there's also a number of them what I call being set in a goal trap. And that goal trap has a number of symptoms to it. So one of those symptoms is unrealistic goal setting. It can be in a situation where there's too many goals, the expectations are so high, there's no review of the goals that were set in the first place, there's no celebration of the wins that are occurring, and it's sometimes, even within organizations, there's a lack of communicating even what the goals are. So by the end of the year, there's a lot of questions on like, okay, we had goals. Do we remember what they are? And then the best question of all of it is, if you remember them, did you meet even any of the measurements?
That answers, or at least brings about a lot of questions that I think most people do have. And of course, they have to meet. One of the questions I'd like to ask you, though, is what do you think of professional goals setting versus personal goal setting?
I think there's no way to actually set your professional goals without looking at your personal goals. I think they should be integrated. I do think that it's something that when we're talking about, especially on a professional level, where do things lie? And I know we talk about not work-life balance, but work-life integration. And I know we did that in episode 59 recently in the crisis management with Becky Carroll.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, that was great. She's out of Chicago and she helps with crisis management. But she also talks about how you have to have that integration. And there was the other one with the attorney, Jason Levine. I think that was episode 18.
I believe so.
Yes. And he was talking about not just balancing time, but integrating the time that you have and how he does it with his staff and leading a very active firm. I know that in episode 30, I talked about power of planning and what that looks like. But I would suggest definitely getting a professional planner, either in software or in a hard copy. I'm, again, getting a number of different ways of doing it, but I love my hard copy planners.
Yes, well, and I'm a hard copy kind of planner kind of guy. I have to have it laid out in front of me. Mm-hmm. If not, I'm lost.
Yeah, I think there's something said about not having it in front of you and not being able to see goals day to day. Yes, and there's differences between goals and tasks, which I have a task list that also runs.
Yes, you do.
I know you do too. But there's even having to set aside time on, where you write them and taking the time to review them. How many of us actually have little Post-it notes and we stick them up and we say, oh, where did that Post-it note? And if you're in the office where you see a number of people with Post-it notes, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I used to do that. Thank goodness for the foam. All Post-it notes now are in the foam. So
Yes.
So what goals do you suggest?
What goals that I suggest are actually about looking at time and budgeting. And here's some ideas for those I know you just can't go wrong with. So the first one I'm going to talk about is keeping a time planning journal. Prioritizing making time for family, keeping up with friends, and looking realistic at what you can do in a day. So critically important because it's nothing like having a number of lists and then goals, and then you have the situation where you're having a problem with even keeping up with your list that you have. Second, I would suggest creating a budget that notes the essentials, but also having what I call play money. But you got to have some resources where you can have some fun with it as well. So because life happens, I would also suggest a review of the budget after at least a 30-day cycle, adjusting it accordingly, making sure you have savings and future financial planning built in. But it's really critically important.
I have a funny feeling that play money would be, especially now, awful hard to keep around.
Yes. I think unfortunately with times it gets tighter. The play money is the first thing that goes, of course.
Yes, it is.
Because of the essentials. But I would say too that even if it's $1 or $2, there's some things that if you can just put aside just a little bit of that money for yourself, you'll feel a lot better about your budget. The third thing is I would be more mindful and present. Now, this can be a little bit of a challenge, I think, with social media pulling in different components. But if you can put a measurement of like taking 15 minutes in the morning to steadily get yourself present and grounded to prepare for the day, it goes a long way. You don't feel like you're hurried or rushed. And then, go to your time planning journal to look at what needs to be done. What's essential for that day versus what can be done tomorrow.
And I can contest to that for sure. I do that every day. I've got to have some type of list to keep myself on track.
I think also too that prioritizing and cleaning and organizing. And I say cleaning where some people say, oh no, cleaning what? But, go to those piles that you see maybe around your home, but also maybe in the office. Maybe it's that inbox that just keeps getting higher and higher. Put it on the schedule. Put it on schedule to get into the inbox, get it cleaned out. Maybe you'll find some pleasant surprise in the mailbox. For those that say, oh, that's just junk mail, I'll just get to it. Go through it quickly and make time to get through even commercialized solicitations. Get through them, get them off your desk, get them out. They do pile up. There might be something in there, but at least get it off your desk. I think it's really important too, and I'm going to say this, then this really may catch some people off guard, but if you've got an Apple Watch or you've got a watch that tells you what the next thing is going or it alerts you about an email coming in, there's some alerts that need to be turned off. Take your watch off.
Okay, so you're basically telling me to get rid of my watch.
I'm trying not to tell you to get rid of your watch.
Okay.
But I am tell you to set it aside. The watch has now become another distraction, just like if your phone is a distraction. So if you can take your watch off, set it aside, even if it has to be in meetings with someone, do it, because sometimes the watches have a mind of their own. I know I've been caught with my watch trying to talk or do something while I'm actually trying to prioritize other situations.
I am definitely guilty of that.
And so the biggest thing is that with the cleaning and prioritize, please get it done. I'm going to say number 5, prioritize your sleep. Rest will help you feel your best and make solid decisions and solutions. The worst thing you can do is make a decision based on the fact that you're either hungry or you're sleepy. But those are challenges.
Yes, that's all I'm going to say on that one.
Prioritizing sleep, yes. Number 6, I would say make your health screenings a priority. If you're planning out your year, please make sure to look at your schedule and schedule those doctor's appointments. And I would suggest in the first couple of weeks of the year. Only because if you wait to the last minute, if you're anything like you're trying to get into your primary care professional, it may be a situation where they can't get you in right away. And so if you can plan out and think about those screenings and say, even if it's January now, but if you can plan it out for August or September, get them on the schedule.
Yes, studies have shown that the more you target your health screenings early, the more you'll do it. As time goes throughout the year, things get more busy for us, and we tend to put things off as the year goes on. So I have seen those studies.
Yeah, I think putting it off and then prioritizing other things, there's always something coming up. 7, I would say explore and take up a hobby. It's really critically important to really take a careful look at your free time, fun time, because the creative side is really important. And I would say set a goal to pick up a new hobby. The 8th one is to volunteer. And again, if you're part of a club or a group that actually naturally does that, fantastic. But it will also help you give to others. And there's such a great feeling, a boost in giving to others that just it can't be replaced. And then let situations go. So it may even get your mind off of situations that may get you wrapped up. So those are goals.
Truly agree.
The ninth goal is, and I didn't put it down too far, but it is on the top 10. You know, you need to walk, swim, move, period. And I know I'm part of a couple of groups that actively get out and make it a point and to do it. And it's a great feeling, especially if you can do it with someone else. If you have a partner, but if you don't have a partner who wants to get up and do it, then, make it a priority for yourself. I have to say, for those that are my friends out there tracking on their trackers on how many steps they're getting in, keep it up, but prioritize it on the calendar. Put it down for the week. If you're going to do 2 times a week or 3 times a week, and drink that water. Make sure that you're getting hydrated with that. For those, I actually witnessed someone who took an entire gallon and put it full of water, and they drank from that gallon all day long.
Good. Oh, I was just going to say, good gracious.
I think you were with me when we saw that, but it was
Yes.
it was funny to see it, and I'm like, is that for real? But that's a lot of water, but they really do encourage you. You've got to get water in.
Well, my saying is the human body was meant to move.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been, from at least the profession I'd been in. The more you move, I always say the heart is a muscle. So you have to exercise that muscle. Keep it moving.
Mm-hmm. And, last one is always keeping your mind strong, just like it's a muscle too. Build time for reading newspapers, books, and journals. If it's weekly, if it's daily, budget for subscriptions. So when you're looking at your budgeting and I want to be able to read, different newspapers, just build it in, and you can listen while you work out. So some of these goals, these top 10 goals, are just feed into the other ones. And I know there's individuals who are actually reading books, but they're actually listening to books, audiobooks.
Okay, well, here's my next question. How do you know you are making progress? And to add on to that, how do you advise to stay out of goal trap?
Oh, that goal trap. So again, when we start talking about this, having the challenges of knowing the symptoms of unrealistic goal setting and what that looks like, I think that you really have to regularly check and review the goal. Just like in strategic planning, you need to stop and do a progress check. Where are we at with that? Every goal needs to be quantifiable and measurable. That's the way you do it. So if you're setting a goal, for example, of reading a book, 5 books this year, space it out and don't get frustrated if you fall behind. You have to give yourself grace. So for example, if you've got a book and you started it and you can't seem to, you've got a couple things that got in the way, you've tried to prioritize, but life happens. Just come back to that book. Don't give up on that book.
I have a question. Could you carve out like maybe 10 minutes a day, something like that, to keep on pace, especially with favorite book that you want to continue to read? Would you suggest that?
Yes, I mean, I've got good friends who are in book clubs, and sometimes they read at the end of the day. Some try to read in the beginning of the day, or again, if they're using audiobooks, they're working out. But I think that carving out time, just like you said, 10 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, I think that it's fair. It's a nice break in between. So for those that are carrying books around with them, or they have the books, they're stacked next to their beds, and they don't seem to travel and they're collecting dust, take one with you. Take one with you.
I do know one thing, and I will say when you go to the restroom, they say you are in there for actually 7 minutes. Most people say they read while they're in there.
Well, you know what? If you take the book wherever you need to take the book.
All right. I will.
I think it's really important you build breaks in your goals too. If some of the other ones that are not where it's a book, but maybe it's something where you're working out, vacation happens or somebody gets sick, again, if it happens, give yourself grace and then come back to that goal, but don't give up on that.
Well, thank you for your goals and your suggestions. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and actually serving as host and giving me that break as we start off that new year. Since you are the advisor for safety and for sports, as our advisor for Mays & Associates, do you have any suggestions, especially when it comes to some of the safety pieces?
Yes. Well, I'm going to always say, please make sure you check your smoke detectors and your CO detectors. That's the biggest thing. at this time of the year, because remember, you are within your home and your home is very sealed up. So that's what I recommend.
Excellent. Well, that is great. When you talk about checking them, for those that are notorious for batteries, get those batteries.
That's the biggest thing. We always say, don't let that Tweety bird chirp because it'll wear on you after so long.
It does. Every 30 seconds it chirps. So I can't thank you enough for helping host the show. And and I appreciate our listeners too. Any feedback you can provide at info@MaysAssociatesLTD.com. I also like to thank our sponsor, Edward Jones Financial Advisor Jennifer Penzition, who can definitely help you with your financial goal setting. So
until next time.
The Pinleader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Mays & Associates LTD, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.MaysAssociatesLTD.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pinleader podcast and share with others.